Welcome to Real Talk, where we give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here and submit your question for a future episode. I've got my friend Jimmy Cooper back from Hey Worship Leader. We're going to answer some questions that I got this week. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Hey, worship leader and Spencer. First, thanks for the time you devote to helping others lead worship well. Yeah, that's definitely you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy.
You are doing a fantastic job. Did I write this for you? Question is, how do you feel about taking requests from the congregation for worship songs to sing? I know when I hear certain songs, hymns, and contemporary, they hit harder than others. I've never taken requests, although if I hear someone say a particular song touches their heart, I will play it from time to time.
So, this is actually interesting, Jimmy, because I don't know if you remember, but the last time that you were on Real Talk, I sent you a question that was like, I think it was like, all the youth in my church want to do Toby Mac songs, and it was like another song suggestion one. So I'll try to link that episode down in the description below, and you can hear what Jimmy said last time and compare it to what he says this time, and then call him out on
I might need
his,
to do that
inconsistencies. But let's talk about song suggestions, because there's always those times after the service where somebody's comes up and they're like, Spencer, do you know this song from, I don't know, I'll pick a random band, the Gaithers. It came out in the 80s, and it's like, I wasn't even alive in the 80s, so no, I don't know that song. And they're like, well, it's a really good song, it's one of my favorites, I think that we should do it in church. Like, that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this question. Not just like, and sometimes it's like,
maybe it's just overwhelming.
did you hear
amount.
that new song on the radio?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'll check that out. But do you get suggestions from people?
I think in my context at my church right now, people kind of know this meme of it. So people will always preface, and I don't get it a lot, but when they do, they're like, I don't mean to be that person, but I heard this song and I thought maybe I would send it to you. So I get more of those emails right now, which I really appreciate. And I don't mind getting songs because I'll just start this. I feel like my job is more pastoral, and I'm trying to serve these people that I have been given and I've been entrusted with. And so if there are, like, I want to sing songs that they also want to sing, and that may mean putting my preferences aside. I already have the upper hand in that I get to choose out most of the songs. And so I'm already singing the songs I want to sing, hopefully. And so I don't mind hearing from time to time. Now, if I were getting crazy requests all the time, I might have a different answer right now or a different feeling. But where I'm at now, I don't mind it, and it gives me like a little peek into what people are listening to and what they like. And so, and I have a way of introducing new songs that I'll just mention. Like, there's we have two playlists on Spotify. One is This Week in Worship, which are the songs that we will be singing that weekend. So it helps people sing, so no one can ever come to me and be like, I didn't know that song. I hate when you playing songs we don't know. I'm like, hey, actually, we have a new songs playlist. We have a This Week in Worship playlist. The second playlist is New Songs playlist, where songs go that we may do. And so when somebody sends me a song, if I've been thinking about, if I've already like made sure it hits all the boxes that it could be something that we sing, I put it on that playlist to live for a while. And then they'll hear it. We play that playlist as we walk in church. So they know I've taken them seriously, but just because it makes it on that playlist doesn't mean we will do it. So I just consider it.
So you legitimately consider it if somebody asks you? Because I think, I say that like that, because I think some people are just like, yeah. I pick the songs in this church. You don't get to tell me what to pick.
No, I legitimately do. If somebody were to come up and suggest a Bill Gaither song from the 80s, I would feel like they're very out of touch with what we already sing. But I would still consider it. I would probably be like, is this something that we can make our own? You know, if the message is good. I have just never had that happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I'll say this politely, but like probably 85% of the time it's usually a no when somebody suggests a song to me. And that's not, I don't think that's on them. I think it's because like I'm really picky when it comes to songs. I put out a video not too long ago about the 26 songs that I sing at my church. And like I've been at my church for coming up on 3 years now, and my worship song repertoire is 26 songs. because I always talk about on this channel how I think people introduce way too many new songs. And so I'm not even talking about that topic in this video necessarily, but my point is, like, for me personally, I don't introduce that many new songs. So if I introduce a new song, it better be a really good song, because I'm not just doing it for one Sunday and then moving on. Like, if I introduce a new song, I just did, and this was funny because I was just at Jimmy's worship rehearsal a couple nights ago, and he was like, hey, we're doing this new song this week, Before the Throne of God Above. And I was like, I just introduced that song to my church. And why did I introduce that song? It was because it was a really good song. Before the throne of God above, I have a strong and perfect plea, a great high priest whose name is love, whoever lives and pleads for me. And so it's not like I'm singing like, I was going to name a specific song,
You're not
but
gonna go
it's
there.
not
Okay.
like I'm singing like one of those Buddy the Elf worship songs. This is something I told Jimmy about, an idea that I have, my first time revealing this thought on the channel. It's not
go.
like a Buddy the Elf worship song, you know, that scene in Elf where he's like, I'm here with my dad, and he wants me to sing him the song, and I'm here now, and I love you, 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 I love you. Like, I don't pick worship songs like that. And my point in the suggestion part of that is, like, sometimes that's what people like in their personal worship time.
Yeah.
And maybe that helps you connect with Jesus in your personal worship time. But one of the criteria that I have for the songs that I pick is our worship songs have two objectives. Obviously to glorify God, but also to teach and admonish one another. So if the singing in our gathering is meant to teach and admonish one another, then there must be enough truth in that to teach and admonish one another. And that's why I shy away from these, like, personal response worship songs. Not that they're necessarily bad in and of themselves. It's not bad to say, I'm here and he wants me to sing him a song, and I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. But that can be a personal worship time. When we're gathered together, we're here to celebrate the truths of God because it glorifies God and because it teaches and admonishes one another. And usually, when I get requests from people, it's not usually like songs like that. Sometimes it is, but yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is they need to have like a good song selection vetting process, because,
Yes.
and I said that songs that make it on that new songs playlist, they only make it on the new songs playlist if they've already made it through. And I'm about to hijack your free gift, but I have a free song selection PDF that you can download if we put it down below. If you need help thinking through, like, how will a song make it? And this is something I even share with people that ask, like, well, what kind of songs do you choose? You know, if I have to say, oh, this one's not good, and here's the reason. I actually think through all of these categories before a song makes it into our current library. And if they see that you put that amount of thought into it, they probably haven't. And they're like, oh, I'm so glad you put this much thought into it, and bring them along in the process. That has usually helped.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is, like, use this as a teaching moment. Because how often do we get to tell
Yeah.
a church, listen, church, we pick these songs because we want them to glorify God and teach and admonish one another. And if a song doesn't have enough theological truth in it to do those things, then we aren't going to pick it. Like,
Yeah.
we don't get the chance to say that, at least
Right.
not on a regular
I don't,
basis.
yeah.
And so use those moments to say, okay, I'm going to run it through this criteria. Here's my criteria. And then you can actually listen to the song and see if it does that. And then I just want to wrap up this question, and then we'll move on to the next one, with something that you said at the beginning, like, I'm here to serve my people. And so, in one sense, that means that we listen to the suggestions of people, but it also doesn't mean that we put the desires of one person above everybody else. So there is sort of a balance there of, I want to take suggestions from my congregation because it's connecting with at least one person, but if it's not going to connect with the whole congregation and it's just like this one person's preference, then I'm probably not going to do the song either.
Yeah.
So we're there to serve our church, but our church is not just one person.
Right.
Our church is the entire church. So check that out in the description below. Jimmy's song list checklist, song picking checklist.
Song selection checklist, I think it's called.
There we go. I'll link it down in the description below. How do you grow a team who's used to complacency and expects us, the leadership, to adjust to them? We've been having issues on this because most of our team members are students, and considering the season they're in, they want to try a lot of things in school, but also want to try to work on making up and serving in the team. Issues such as late on-call times during Sundays, procrastinating learning the songs, and reacting badly when we try to discipline them. Thank you. So, students on your worship team, I actually just asked Jimmy this question a couple of nights ago, or last night. I said, do you have like an age limit for your worship team? What did you tell me? Because it was you kind of did, but it seemed kind of flexible.
Yeah, no, we do. It's 18 and up, because anybody under 18 is still in the youth, and we already have a youth band, and that's where they go to like be trained. I was talking through if the scenario was different, if we needed somebody and I felt like a youth was mature enough and was skilled enough, would we let them? That hasn't come up yet. So that was the fluidness that maybe I would consider that, but that's not the norm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I brought that up because I think that part of this question has to do with, should there be an age limit on the worship team? Because you have these students who are busy in school and they want to do school sports and be in the school band, and they want to do 50 million things, and that's getting in the way of them serving on the worship team. And here's what I'd say to myself if I'm thinking about this. I was going to say, here's what I'd say to them, but I don't always say to other people what I would say to myself. I would be like, you serve or you play on the baseball team at school. Does the coach say, hey, you know what? You cannot show up for any practices and then still play in the game. Yeah. Or you just get to show up when you feel like it. Or, hey, you play in the school band and you come to the practices all the time, but you only show up like when it's convenient for you to play during the concert. Like, things, I don't understand why people think expectations in the church should be different from, like, this is just an organizational expectation. It has nothing to do with spirituality. This is like a logistical expectation. If you want to play on the team, you must be at practice.
Yeah.
On a consistent basis, at least. Maybe you're not there every week.
Maybe
but
you got sick one week, then, there's.
But the logistical expectations are not dulled because we're in a spiritual organization and we're supposed to be nice to everybody or something.
Right.
Like, you're on a team. If you want to be on the team, be on the team. If you don't want to be on the team, or if you're not going to commit to the team, don't be on the team.
Right.
It's not like a I don't know, like a privilege that you get to just be on the worship team. Because,
right.
And people always say to me, like, well, who are you to tell me that I can't be on the worship team? Or like, I wouldn't want to serve on your worship team. Yeah. And I'm like, I hold myself to these same expectations. I'm not saying like I'm above everybody. I mean, I'm the leader, so I have a little bit of authority on the team.
Right.
But this is just, to me, it's common sense. If you want to be on the team, you got to show up.
Exactly. I mean, that, like you said, that's sports. I mean, I even had coaches, like, if you miss practice, you're definitely not starting that week, even if you're a starter. But I think the two things I want to say is that even if I were to let the youth on the team, let's just say I had a policy they had to be 14 and up or whatever, I would still hold them to the same expectations that I do my regular team members, and I treat my regular team members the same way. Like, you have to show up to rehearsal. There's only like you at rehearsal, and I have a bass player, Mike, who can never make rehearsals. But I've decided to let him be on the team because his talent, like, he shows up early when he's there on Sunday, shows up early and he knows his stuff. So if anybody comes to me and says, well, you let him, but you're not letting me, it's because maybe their talent's not good enough. I can say, yeah, but he still produces, and anyway. So I do bend the rules because I'm not an organization, like, this is a ministry, but the rules are there, and I would only bend them if I feel justified in doing so. The second thing is, if it's youth, then I would begin thinking about a transition into more of like a mentorship internship, where they have to earn that spot. So like it's kind of the same thing. So whether they're on the team already or not, but usually when they're that young, they still need training, whether it's through skill or even their heart of what they're doing. And so I would treat it more like an internship, and you could start this now, like move them to an internship and make them earn it. And that may weed out some of that non-commitment, whatever the word is. And then you know, I guess the third thing would be, and I don't know if I would actually say this, but if I needed to say this, I would. I think there's a temptation for parents and kids to be maybe too involved in sports and extracurricular activity in so much that it takes them out of church. And I would just stress the importance of the local church. Not saying you can't play sports, but when you're deciding, should I play 3 sports this year and stay out of church, or play 2 sports and be in church, I would stress the importance of being in community, and that may need to be said as well.
I think, yeah, that's a very good point. I'm not a parent, so Jimmy thinks through of these parental things, but I think that makes sense. And so now those are the things that you heard us say. This is what I'd say to myself, but I wouldn't actually say this to them. So I always like to, I've said this before, I like to soften the blow. Like, I get my thoughts out there. If the person wasn't in front of me and I was just fuming in my office at church, I don't have an office at church, but if I was just fuming by myself, these are the things that I would say, and there's some truth in that, clouded in emotion. So let's remove the emotion. Now, let's say, okay, this person has students on their team who aren't committed, and they're showing up late on Sundays. They aren't learning the songs. I assume procrastinating learning the songs just means that they don't know the songs. And then when we try to discipline them, they react poorly. What do we do in that? Those are very specific issues that we deal with. In my mind, we have expectations in place beforehand, and we say, like you said, I hold everybody to the same expectation. Yeah. When you join my team, you sign on to the code of conduct, which says, as a team, these are the things that we are going to abide by. Once again, this isn't just me arbitrarily making up rules. These are rules that serve for the good of the entire team. I'm not just doing them because I'm trying to be mean to people, because I hold myself to these same standards. So I would sit down and say, listen, as a worship team member, part of what we're committed to is not just playing on Sunday morning and showing up 5 minutes before the service starts, but part of what we're doing is being at rehearsal, showing up on time on Sunday, learning the songs before we have to play them on Sunday. And I just feel like you're struggling in those areas. And obviously that's not an easy conversation, but it's still a conversation that you need to have. Being in leadership is not always easy.
Yeah, and this is worship ministry. This is not children's ministry. And what I mean by that is probably not what we're thinking. I could have named any other ministry. The worship ministry doesn't need a team to exist. Meaning that, like, when I first got to my church and I re-auditioned everybody so that I could get to meet them and see where their talents are and their skills. And so for the first month, I just played acoustically. We didn't have a band. And so I'm thinking of this person, like, if you need to do a reset, do that. Plan it maybe a few months out and explain what you're going to do. Get support from the leadership, so you're not just doing this random thing and making all the parents mad and they all leave the church and stop giving. Don't do that. That's unwise. But make a plan and then do a reset, or however you want to do it, and re-audition everybody. All that to say, even if you don't play an instrument as the worship leader, our call is to sing. So I would even say, like, if I couldn't play an instrument, I'd be like, for the next 4 weeks, we're just going to sing a cappella. Like, that's okay while you get while you do this reset and re-audition everybody, set expectations. I'm imagining everything we're saying has not been put in place because they've already gotten to this level. So I would say I would do a hard restart, and you don't need a full team every week. You can lead acoustically or by a piano or just sing a cappella.
Last question for you in this question. When did you start leading worship? What age?
When did I start leading worship? When did I start leading worship well?
Playing on the worship team.
I was married already.
Really?
Yeah.
You were that old.
I didn't start even playing guitar until I was 18. So I got a late start.
See, for me, and this is why these questions are hard for me, because I started when I was 13. And I think, now, I don't think I had any of these problems. I think I was committed to the team, and I know that I showed up at every rehearsal.
And there are a lot of youth that are like that, more committed than even the adults are.
But I think some people are like, well, if we're going to have an age limit of 18, I started when I was 13. And I want to tell you, like, I'm somebody who started at 13, and I can tell you right now that I would not let the 13-year-old Spencer lead worship on Sunday. because my philosophy of worship ministry is different. So even though God used that, because God uses all things for his glory, he is completely sovereign and can do whatever he wants. There are still wise decisions that we can make, and we don't just say, well, this worked out for me. Like, just because something worked out one time doesn't mean that it is the normative way that we should do things. And so if I just wanted to put that out there, because I know for a lot of you, you started leading worship when you were young, and you're thinking back to those days.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, filtering through my mind, I'm like, I would not let the 13-year-old Spencer lead worship on Sundays. And I wasn't even like a horrible worship team member. There was a lot I needed to learn, and if worship leading is a spiritual responsibility, a 13-year-old should probably not be leading a spiritual responsibility in the church.
And that goes back to like what I was saying about the mentorship or internship or just plain old discipleship. They need to be discipled in this, even if their skill is at the level it needs to be, which most of the time 13, I guess it can be, but most of the time it's not, in my experience. But it's not usually the musicality. It's their heart, their head, making sure they know what their role is. And that takes years of just learning from an older leader like yourself.
So maybe that's a future video, is how do you mentor students in worship ministry so that they're ready to lead worship when it's time, but not in a way that's unhealthy for the church where we're giving people too much responsibility too soon. If you want to see that video, let us know in the comments below, and I might make it in the future. We can talk about that. Now, if you need help picking out songs like we talked about back in the first question, check out Jimmy's
Song selection checklist.
Song selection checklist. I'll link it down in the description below, and you can vet any worship song suggestion that someone in your church gives you. So check that out in the description below. Other than that, thanks so much for joining us. Until we see you in the next video.
Keep leading worship well.
You get it sometime.
Oh, man.